everybody? Welcome to the Crazy Within Talk Show with your host, Crazy Coach Cynthia Robinson. I am so excited to be here on this Wednesday night because we are starting this month, February. The month will be about finances. And I think it's real important for us to talk about finances because a lot of us like to claim that I am the seed of Abraham. And yet we walk around like the seed of impoverishment. We do not prepare, we do not plan, we do not put together a plan. We don't do anything to help us with our finances. So today, what I want us to start doing is looking at where we are and how we can get a better standing financially over our lives. Too many of us are in a place where we are allowing other people to financially take care of us when it's all said and done. And I don't think that's fair to anyone. I think that we should be preparing ourselves for our financial livelihood and not preparing for somebody else to do it for us. Please excuse me, my strings are hanging. Uh, so, as we prepare tonight, I have two wonderful women of God who will be coming on here talking about different areas of retirement planning and being financially prepared for your retirement. I want to believe that everybody's going to retire. I want to believe that we're all going to make it to that age where we can relax. And some people retire earlier than what the government says that we should be retiring. Some people retire as early as 50. I think my mother retired when she was 55. And so people get to retire earlier. But when you retire earlier, you should be able to financially be able to support yourself when you retire early. Because what can happen is, and I say this all the time, life will happen. Things will occur. And a lot of us don't prepare for the rainy days. We don't prepare for the things that could happen. We don't prepare, as in the hotel industry, as we call it, the what ifs. We don't prepare for what could happen today and what situations can take place. We're not prepared. And then when it happens to us, we sit and we go, oh my God, what just happened? So I want on tonight, as we are beginning to talk about this, I want you guys to take down some notes. Get some information. Maybe it's not meant for you. Maybe you're in your 20s, and so you don't think this is meant for you, even though I would tell you that's not true. If you're not saving in your 20s, you will not be able to save in your 50s and your 60s to save up enough money to prepare yourself for what life will bring. And if you're not paying attention to the news and what's happening in our government, they keep telling us there ain't going to be no money for you anyway. So you might just want to start preparing right now for the life you think you want to live when that time comes. So I want you to think about that. I want you to start writing some notes. Maybe you have a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, a cousin, or whatever, who's right now in that stage of life where they are either about to retire or they're retiring. And maybe these are some of the questions you might want to pose to them about their soon, oh, I'm just going to lay out on the beach and have a good life. And I'm, just going to have myself a margarita and life's going to be great. And I'm going to take my vacation and blah, 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 blah. And not realizing that they might not be able to retire. Because I have seen a lot of people who retire and then 10 years later have to go back to work. Even if it's a little part-time gig at Walmart, being a helper or whatever, they have to go back to work because they didn't plan strategically for the what ifs. So on tonight, I have two wonderful women, as I told you, of God who are coming on the show. I have with me a repeat guest. I have Judy, and I also have Kathy. And both of these women are experts in their line and field of business. And I can say that Judy helped me out a great deal when I was dealing with a situation with my mother. And I am so grateful to have people that I can reach out to and say, what can I do about this? How can I assist with this? And this is what made this topic so important for me, because I think that for a lot of times we forget that life's going to happen. It's just really going to happen. And you may not be in a place to be as helpful as you think, but you'll be amazed how helpful you can be. So I'm not going to keep talking. I'm going to bring on both of these women of God onto the scene. so that you guys can chime in, chime in about this subject. I do have on with me Judy A. Hewitt. She is the founder of Self Care for International, and I have Kathy M. Hare, the founder of Worldwide Partnership Group Insurance Solutions. Did I get that right for both of
Yes,
you?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so I'm talking about that, and you guys can chime in on this because I'm sort of freewheeling this today a little bit, but certain things to me are just need to be said. And especially now with everything that's going on with the government, everything that's going on in our lives. And I know for me personally, in my personal life with my mom and all those situations, that a lot of times we're not prepared. And I didn't realize how much I was not prepared for my own retirement. I'm not, and I'm 55 and I'm not prepared because I think we walk around life believing everything will just line itself up when it's time for me to retire. We're not thinking about the fact there are going to be some forms you need to fill out, and when you need to fill
Right.
those forms out, how are you going to go about this? How are you going to go about that? I was talking to somebody at my job, they didn't even know what a living will was. And so we're all walking around not knowing, not seeing that there's a strong possibility that we might be that one that our family has to bury us because we didn't spend any time preparing for something that is going to happen. If you live, you're going to die. Now, whether you die at 2 or you die at 200, it's going to happen. And as much as we want to try to believe that there's going to be some miracle cure that's going to take that away from us, reality is that's going to happen, and we need to be prepared. So I want to ask the both of you this question. You can answer in time, but what I know for me, this is one of my questions. Retirement is, and what would you say from your standpoint and what you deal with on a daily basis? What would you say retirement is for most people that you deal with? What does retirement look like for you when you're working in that business, in your business rather?
Right. Go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, okay. I know if you want. For me, it just depends on the individual because each person is different depending on their need. I have some people that say, hey, they start planning at age 45. Some start planning at 35. And then what's the difference is that um, my Social Security is a great way to, if a person haven't registered for my Social Security and went on there, that's a good to go over there on there and register because then that way you can see exactly. I helped the individual on yesterday, and I registered him on my Social Security, and it gives you detail. Like if you retire today, this is the income that you're going to get. So he's currently 65, and so I think it was around. It was like 2000 and something. But did he want to apply for Medicare Part B? And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because it's never too early to go on there because unfortunately fraud is up and some people are starting to register people now and they're getting that information and the Social Security gives you a code. So they get your phone number and they ask you for your email address. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because unfortunately it was the wrong number put in. So
Oh,
he had to start the whole
start over
application
again.
all over again
Mm-hmm.
because if that code didn't go to the number, then it voids. And and that's for your security. That's for for you to know. So it's good to know. And one of the questions they ask you is, do this seem like it's correct? Does this amount seem like it's amount? Good. Do we have all your years that you worked?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they ask you that question. So it's good for you to compare before you get ready to retire. So, and you have to have 40 quarters in order to get Medicare Part A and B. And
Mm-hmm.
so it'll let you know if you're close to your 40 quarters. So so when it's time for retirement, if you qualify for Part B. You automatically get Part A, but not Part B. So it lets you know about your quarters. It lets you know about your income that's in there. So say that you're dependent on Social Security alone. It's best to know now, not wait until it's 5 years before retirement. I would say at least 10 years before retirement, register on that My Social Security, because it's going to exactly let you know. So say that you started working, I'm just giving a year. Say that you started working 1980, but when you go on that site, it showed 1985. So you lost 5 years. So then that way you can report that and say, I started 1980. So they're going to ask you for different information as far as your company that you work for, the address. So be prepared to have the address. If you don't know it, we have our Google friend that we can look it up now. Type here.gov. The reason why I brought that up, because 2023, 2022, and when I helped this gentleman with his Medicare, to apply for the Medicare and for his benefits, it didn't have his year 2022 on there.
Mm.
So I had to add that. I had to look up the company, their phone number, and everything, and then also look on his W-2 to show exactly how much he made in
Amount.
2022
Mm-hmm.
to add that. So it's great to know that if a person have not registered on that My Social Security, to go on there. And you
Mm.
don't have to you don't have to wait until you 65 or 64.
Right.
It's best to go on there now.
Absolutely.
Good. That's good. That's good
Absolutely.
information.
Yes. Yes. Now, on my end of the spectrum, I basically work with retirees getting medications. So I'm a case manager, and what we do is we provide grants to help people with their medications. Now, that is the Medicare Part D as in David.
Okay.
Now, that is totally for prescription drugs. Usually, they will pay a monthly premium and they have to meet yearly deductibles. And it's about an 80-20 as far as coverage. So Medicare will cover 80, they have to come out of their pocket with that 20%.
Mhm.
Now, what covers or helps them with that 20% is Medicare Part C, which is an advantage plan. Now, an advantage plan is with private insurers, so it does not come with the Medicare package that's covered by the government or the federal government. The Medicare Advantage plan is offered by private insurers. It combines the A and B together with vision, dental, hearing benefits, and more. But what it does, it actually helps them with their medications. Now,
Mm.
as we all know, the cost of medication is a lot. So sometimes people still have to get grants to help with that copayment if they are on
Mm.
medications that they're relying on to
Yeah.
maintain their health. And the last item I really want to bring about as far as the Medicare Part D, if you do rely on prescription drugs to maintain your health, you have to elect the Medicare Part D coverage 63 days after you become eligible for Medicare. If not, there are penalties involved. So, going back to what Kathy says, having a plan way ahead of time, whereas you know what you have, you know what you don't have,
Mhm.
you know where you're going, you know what you need to do. And then lastly, unfortunately, if you do have to rely on prescription drugs to maintain your health, and you do not elect that Medicare Part D within that 63-day period, as I mentioned before, there are going to be penalties throughout the rest of your life. It's not like there's a one time penalty at all. You're going to be penalized every month, you have to pay into it. And a lot of people that I come across daily in my activities with retirees and their medications are not aware of that, you know, part there where if you think, I'm doing
Mhm.
well, I'm living healthy. I don't take any drugs that I have to basically, rely on to survive. And unfortunately, God forbid, something happens and now the doctor prescribes you something, and you're like, well, let me go ahead and see if I can get this Part D. There will be penalties attached to it once you apply for it after that 63-day grace period.
Wow. And that's something I honestly would not have known. And I learned that speaking with you in reference to now dealing with a lot of stuff with my mother,
Hmm.
um, and learning the different things. Like I said, I did not realize I'm 55. I need to start preparing now for what I consider will be my retirement. Whether I retire from the business at 55, I'm 65, or later, I need to be prepared that I know what I'm walking into because a lot of us walk into stuff and we have no idea what we're walking into. And that's really
Absolutely.
not the way that it should be. We should be prepared, and not just prepared enough to take care of ourselves, but prepared enough to be able to tell our family what we want and we need. When we have
Absolutely.
sound minds and body, we should be letting everybody around us know what we want, how we want it done, where we want this to go. This is where this is the safe that you can find all my information, the life insurance policies and all that stuff. And a lot of people are not prepared that way. They just assume that everything will just fall into place. And I think it's a huge misconception. Especially in the Black community, is a huge misconception that everything will just fall into place. And and after talking to some people at my job, apparently it's a mistake in the Hispanic community as well
Yes, it
because
definitely is. Because I
Mhm.
worked in both arena, and unfortunately, they don't believe in some don't believe in retirement or life insurance, and it's real big. Because I started out as a debit insurance agent, and a lot don't have. And I just want to piggyback off of what Miss Judy said about that prescription plan. A lot of people feel that, oh, I don't take medication, so I don't need it. And I spoke with an individual, and I told her, I said, you need it regardless if you take medication. Well, I don't take it. I'm never going to get. And like she said, once that doctor prescribes and you don't have it, you're going to get penalized. So I urge people when they turn 65, even if they don't take medication, to get that Part D or a Medicare part, the Part C, where it covers your medical and your prescriptions. But unfortunately, sometimes when people don't take medication, they say, I don't need Part D. But if they're getting Part C, they don't need to get Part D because Part D is under that Part C as well.
wow. And talking about that, I did have that as something to talk about, which is I think a lot of people don't know the difference between Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
there's
yes,
a lot
Medicare
of
is.
misconception,
Yes,
lot of misconception.
Absolutely.
yes, because Medicare is by the government. That is the government for the Social Security, and Medicaid is the state,
The
and it's
state,
the
right.
state and the Medicaid. You have to qualify, and it's usually between the young, and you can get Medicaid for your baby or a single mom when
Hmm.
she's finna have birth to a baby, and then that baby is covered for birth, and sometimes the mom will still stay on there for a specific time, and so a lot of different changes done change. So sometimes the mother only may be on there until that baby's 6 months or a year because of income, because it's income driven. So it goes definitely by your income. And another thing too, Medicare doesn't go by your income, but Medicaid does, and a lot of people get that
Absolutely.
mixed up. And what happens is with the Medicaid, um, if you have Medicare and Medicaid, if your income here in Florida is under 1,300, you may qualify to get that Medicaid assistance to pay for the Medicare Part B. We know last year Medicare was up to 170 some dollars, right? This year it went back down to 164 and some change. So what happened was last year, 2022 hit, it was the first year ever that Medicare actually rose $20. It usually
Right.
went up to $4 or $5, never $20. So,
Right.
and so this year, that's the reason why it went down and didn't go up. And
Right.
so, a person, so now what's going to happen is, some seniors got a raise in January, and
Absolutely.
unfortunately, it's going to raise their income above that level. And some, unfortunately, seniors are getting letters that they don't qualify for Medicaid anymore because of their
Wow.
income.
Income. Right.
So, and so that 164 that they wasn't paying for that Part B, it's going to be a hit because they never paid for it. Say that you never paid for that Part B for 5 years. And so now because you got that increase in your check, now you have to pay this 164, and you're like, what happened? So it's because of that income, and the Part B went down from 173 to 164.90. And that's the
Absolutely.
only reason that it went down. Because last year when it went up to $20, we was like, what happened? Um, and so a lot of people that didn't qualify for Medicaid because of the income
Income
level.
increase. Yeah.
So, and a lot of people don't know that if their income is a certain level, that's on Medicare, that they can qualify if they're, and then two, if they're married, it also is an income limit as well, because the
Absolutely.
combined, and that's why a lot of seniors don't get married.
Great, great
They
point.
get
Right.
single.
Right.
It was like, I'll live with you, but I ain't gonna marry you because I won't be able to get this extra
Exactly.
help. And I
Right.
run across that a
Yes.
lot too. So it's a
Right.
lot to play. And then too, that they have different levels of Medicaid. So it can be um, this part where it pays for Part B, and then it could be a Medicaid where it's subsidized in a different area, that it doesn't going to pay for Part B. So it just depends on their income, what they
Right.
will be able to qualify for. So I
Qualify
always say,
for it.
um, try it. Don't never just look at your income, because you never know that you may fall into a different level. So Medicare is
Absolutely.
government and Medicaid is state.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. And I remember watching. I forget what show it was, but these people had been married, I think, for 50 something years, and they had to divorce because they could not stay married to each other, or they both would have lost their benefits, and they couldn't afford to lose their benefits. They were 80 some years old, and they had to like literally divorce. They thought they could just separate. So they were separated, and they literally had to get a divorce. They had to prove that they weren't married anymore. And I thought that was so sad, that you have to leave your loved one in order for you to be able to be alive. Like,
Survive.
to me,
Hmm.
that's crazy, but that is the way of this
That's the
world.
reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Absolutely.
And we run across that a lot, unfortunately. And
Yes.
they, and also with Medicare, because I know Miss Judy helped with medications for his grants. They have Medicare also have, it's called LIS, so low subsidized for your medication,
Hmm.
where that you call Social Security and you ask, and so it's a different income bracket other than Medicaid. And so what
Hmm.
happens is you can see if you qualify for that. So say if the copayment is $35, your copayment, because you under that program under Medicare, would be $5, or it
Right.
could be zero copay. So I always urge anyone that's on Medicare to see if you qualify. Call Social Security and say, hey, I want to see if I qualify for LIS, to see if I can get assistance with my medication. And they're going to ask you about your income. They're going to ask you about certain levels and what you have in your bank account, your savings. And sometimes, and they, one of the questions that people may be strange. They say, why would they ask me about life insurance? Do I have life insurance? It's
Right.
because you have
Right.
cash value in that policy. So that means that if you
Exactly.
come into a hardship, you'll be able to pull that cash value out of that policy. So that's why they ask about life insurance.
Mm.
Absolutely. Because that could be considered an income.
And that's something else that we need to be mindful of, that I talked about it earlier, but I want to talk about it even more, is that we need to make sure that we have life insurance, that you have something. I said this, and you talked about it, because the people I talked to at my job, They're Hispanic and they're young. They're like 20s and 30s. But when I talked about life insurance, they all looked at me like, life insurance? What's that? And I was amazed that they didn't even know what life insurance was. And so to me, I think it's one of those things that we just don't talk about in our communities. We don't
Absolutely.
speak of it. It's not something. And I said to them, well, what I'm talking about is so that your family doesn't have to worry about burying you. They should be at peace with burying you, not worrying about burying you. And then when
Exactly.
they begin to understand what I was saying, which is somebody is going to have to bury you.
Very
It
you.
should be you though. You should be prepared to bury yourself. That's what the life
Absolutely.
insurance is for. And I think for a lot of us, and now I'm learning that it's every community, that we just look at life insurance as something else coming out of our pocket. We,
Absolutely.
we don't want that extra money coming out of our
Mhm.
pocket because, oh, something's going to happen. And no, there's not a something.
Right.
There's really not a something. Like you're going to die, and it's either going to be sister, brother, mommy, daddy. Somebody's paying for it
Right.
if you don't prepare.
And sometimes what they do is they look at if they have a life insurance policy. What happens is, well, I have this phone that I'm paying $60 a month for, and I have a life insurance policy that's $30. Crunch time happened, life happened, but I really need my cell phone, so I'm just going to go ahead and let that life insurance policy
Go.
go.
Hmm.
And so with me, been doing life insurance for 35 years. That's where I started from. And I started out as a debit insurance agent in the community in West Tampa and Carver City here in Florida. And one of the things that I learned when I got started at 25, and one of the things that I learned was that those grandmothers really made sure that they had insurance on their children's, their grandchildren's, their great grandchildren's, and then they tried to show them. And then when I used to do the insurance reviews with those grandparents, um, their insurance policies was like 5,000, 3,000, but they said at least I have something on
Something.
them.
Right.
And so they were trying to teach them as well. And what happens is, like you said, that when you talk about life insurance, and people think it's just for when you're gone. No, because now life insurance got so many components to it. I took a training class years ago in JCPenney. We all know JCPenney. When the recession happened years ago in the 20s, that was how JCPenney was able to save their store. He pulled the cash out of that policy and he paid what he needed to keep that JCP running. So a lot of times when you position, because we know that life insurance is tax free when you pull that money out, it's not taxed on. So it's important, and I always say when you're young, at a young age, it's least expensive for your life insurance.
Right.
You in good health, it's least expensive. But as we mature, sometimes we get certain things that may happen, life happen, and then it
Right.
starts have increasing your policy. When I do different policies, people say, "Why is my policy this?" I say, "Well, number one, you're mature, or you're a smoker, because that
Right.
plays a part in it as well." But say that you stop smoking in a year, you can go back to that same company and say, "Hey, I'm not a smoker anymore, and can I get redone?" And they'll give you a non-smoker rate. You just have to
Right.
test for a non-smoker rate. And then, too, another thing that I tell people is to know the difference and to know your need. And a lot of people say, "Well, I got insurance on the job. I only pay $5."
Hmm.
It's because it's a group insurance
Mm-hmm.
And it's less.
policy. So it's going to be less. But when you leave that company, that life insurance policy
Doesn't
cannot
go
go
with
with you because it's not mobile.
Right.
And
right.
I always say that if the company cares enough to make sure that we're covered, we should have our own individual policies of our own if a company cares. And one thing I also want to just say about life insurance is that if you have a business and you have a business partner, It's also considered key man insurance as well, that the both business partners have insurance on one another. So if one
Right.
business partner, something happened to that business partner, and say both you're married and that spouse don't want to be stay in the business, well, you can buy that share back from that, or you took out a loan, or you have employees and you just want to close up shop, then you'll be able to give each employee a senator for that. And also churches, if it's a pastor or if it's big leaders in the church, it's good to have that insurance on your pastor. I went to a church and talked to them because they wanted to get insurance on their pastor, and we don't think about that. um, they wanted to make sure that if something happened to their pastor, that they'll be able to take care of that spouse. And
Mm-hmm.
then the number one key is to that as well, they're going to need to replace that pastor. So what happens is when they replace that pastor, now they're not in a hurry to get someone in there. That if they take 6 months to a year to get a pastor that's a calling from God, and not because we got to get an overseer, now
Mhm.
they don't have to be in a hurry because things are taken care of.
Care of, right.
That is so true. And talking about insurance, you have to talk about the benefactors. I think that when you're younger, and you can put your mommy and your daddy as the person who would be the benefactor or whatever. But when you get older, um, and I believe me and Judy talked about this before, is that when you have and you and your spouse are older, to me it doesn't make any sense to make your spouse your benefactor because you and your spouse might be in the same position. Like you're sick, they're sick.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you may be stronger than them, but you're sick and they're sick. And what happens for a lot of people, especially when they're together for a long time, they have a tendency that when one spouse dies, the other one's spouse dies sometimes 6 months or a year later. So you have somebody who does, and now you have, maybe you acquired a lot of money, and now you have all this money out here with a benefactor that no longer is there, and you have nothing to line it up.
Right.
So what are some of the benefits of making sure that you have the right person as the benefactors, or should you have more than one
Yes, so you
benefactor?
definitely should have more than one
Yes.
beneficiary. So you can have like, I just did a review
Percentage.
with someone,
Yeah.
and they're beneficiaries. So when I did a review, unfortunately, her father is no longer here, and she didn't realize that her father was on there as their beneficiary. So it wasn't a company that I signed her up with, but I was able to go talk with her, and she gave, we called the company where they could send her the forms where she could change the beneficiary.
Right.
Or if something would have happened to her, that policy would have just been sitting there in probate. And
Mm-hmm.
so what happens is that you can you can put up to, some companies that you put up to 6 or 8 beneficiaries, as long as it's
Wow.
divided into
Into
100,
right.
total 100.
Percentage wise. Right.
Yes. Or,
Mm.
and then you put a contingent beneficiary. So say that you put a spouse there and something happened to that spouse, and now you have a contingent. That contingent beneficiary could be a child, or it could be, someone that you trust. That could be one. Or say that you have a trust fund. You can make the trust the beneficiary because your
Right.
trust is designated to say who gets what, who's the overseer. Because I just did a case for investment, and so instead of put someone there, we made the trust as the beneficiary.
Mm.
Right.
So it's good to either make sure that you check your beneficiaries every 2 years. Now, like how you said
Regularly. Hmm.
about the children's, if you know that your parents are up there in age, make sure that they get all their beneficiaries checked. Make sure that, hey, if they can't afford to pay that premium anymore, because like you said, those two people had to get a divorce because their age, that you take over. Because sometimes what happens is, I just got a case where a young lady called me. The insurance that sometimes you get through the mail, and it's from the
Oh
credit
yeah.
union. Those policies stop at age 70.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
They
They
yes.
do.
stop
They
at
do.
70, some stop. And so this lady is 79, don't have any insurance because she did not know. So now that policy she's been paying on for years, she has to get another
Start
policy,
over.
and it's going to cost her $300 or $400. So
Right,
it's so if anyone, make sure those beneficiaries are checked. Make sure that if you only have one beneficiary, to have a contingent beneficiary.
right.
So if something happened to the primary beneficiary, you have that contingent beneficiary, and then you have more than one contingent beneficiary. And then if people fall out, unfortunately, sometime, or get a divorce, or life happens, make sure that you review that beneficiary, because, like I said, this young lady, she had her policy for 7, 10 years, and her father was on there, and he's deceased. And if I wouldn't did that review with her,
She would have never known. Yeah.
no.
Wow, that's
And
serious.
she didn't have a contingent beneficiary. It was just her father, so it wasn't a contingent, because her kids was too young at the time when
Right.
the policy, because you don't want to put a child that's under 18 as a
Right, right.
beneficiary, because it'll
Exactly.
just go in until that child reaches the correct age to be able to pull that money out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important. And I know there will be people who will watch this later, but it's so important to make sure that you know your own information. It's
Yes.
important that, and it's the same way with a bank account.
Right.
You may have a bank account, and the person that you have as your co-person on your bank account may be your husband or your wife. But you might want to look into that. You might want to say, like, okay, maybe you and your, and I can say this about me and my husband. Me and my husband are going along. My husband's on disability. I'm still working. If my husband, for some apparent reason, uh, gets dementia or Alzheimer's, I don't want him to have access necessarily to the funds in the bank account, because things happen, and so you have to make sure that you are constantly being aware of what's going on, and not just as far as life insurance and your bank accounts, but also, and I say this honestly, I didn't know that my father had this, and I was so surprised, but he had a living will. My
Hmm.
father had my father had last year literally died, and they resuscitated him, and he had to do not resuscitate.
Ooh.
But they did not know that because he had just moved down to Florida. And literally, we joke about this now, but at the time, he had literally gotten off the plane, was hanging out with his wife the same day, and passed out. And he died, and they resuscitated him and they brought him back. And my father's doing much better, but he had a living will. And
Wow.
so to me, I was like, okay, I got to get a living will. I got to make sure that people know what it
What
is
you
that
want.
I want,
Hmm.
because you can speak a thing all you want to. I can say to my kids, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. But when it comes down to it, and if mommy can't speak for herself, and her children are in their feelings and they hurt, and I know mommy said don't resuscitate her, but I want my mommy
Hmm.
here, and
Hmm.
I love my
Hmm.
mommy, and I'm not going to take her off of the machine.
Right.
Sometimes they in your love is that, and I have to say that in your love,
Right.
you will do it, because in that moment, my loved one is leaving me, and I don't want them to leave right now. I feel it's too early, and so
Absolutely.
having a living will and a will.
Yes, because
Exactly.
because I
Yes.
have a family
Of
now.
course.
I have a
Yes.
family now that's going through
Yes.
probate, because they unfortunately, the mom didn't have a will, and so now they have to pay. And those costs is when you have to
It
go to through
costs. Yes.
probate, it could be around between 1 to 3, 4, $5,000. And so now the family's fighting because there was no will. And
Exactly.
it is certain, it's different companies that's out there that have life insurance that also provide that as
Provides
a
that
service as
will.
well.
Yeah.
That doesn't cost nothing, because the company provides that at a free service. And Florida is the worstest place to be without a will. I remember they named a famous player, and unfortunately, millions of dollars, and he didn't have a will. And so when he passed, his family, all that went in probate, so the state was able to designate who got this and who got this and who didn't get this. But we give the state the rights when we don't have one.
Have, yes, absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
That
that
is so
and
true.
to me that is such a shame because a lot of people don't realize that when we don't place things in order,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that we have our lives lined up the way we would want them. Because there
Thank
are just
you.
certain things that you would prefer. If I told my kids, I don't want a funeral service. I just want to be cremated. You guys do a memorial service, and just let me go. But my kids might decide if I don't have that will in place, they may decide, no, we're gonna give mama a funeral. We're gonna, and they may go come and it's not that they're necessarily not honoring me the way I want it. It's because they're in their feelings, and at that
Feeling.
moment, that's what we do. We get in our feelings. This is our family member, and that's why it's so important for us to put things on paper. And when I
Absolutely.
say put it on paper, make sure it's legal and binding.
Right.
You
Yes.
can't just write it on a piece of on a napkin someday. You sitting at the restaurant.
Back
I
in the
thought
day,
about
back in the day, you could do that. Like
Right.
back in the day, they could
Right.
write something down. But yeah,
it.
and
You got
then
to
you
make
Right.
that
also,
stuff
On a
legal. Because
yeah,
your kids
right.
can go into court, especially if you have any type of money. Because I hate to say this, but it's true. I watch Judge Judy all the time, and I don't know how many people go into court and they're fighting each other over $5,000 or $10,000 because that's all that was left from mommy's estate, and we buried her. And now this is this $10,000, and you're fighting each other over $10,000 because
mhm,
mommy didn't have a will, because
Right.
mommy didn't have a trust, because mommy didn't have things lined up. And so then it becomes a problem within the family over something that to me is pennies. When you when you really think about it, because by the time you go through probate and you go through all these different courts and all this stuff, you're gonna pay out more for $10,000. You're gonna pay out $10,000 to get nothing after it's all said and done. And now you
Absolutely.
done destroyed the family. So it's best that when you have your mind and you have the ability to reach out to someone and say, look, I want to set up a living will and
Right.
also set up a will. So, and maybe you don't want to do a will. Now I heard something, and I don't know how true this is. I heard somebody say that it is better to do a trust than a will. Is that true?
it is good to do a trust, but you you have to make sure you have that certain income. Okay.
Mm,
So if you don't have that certain income and you don't have different things, then it will. So it's all based on a
On
specific
your
need.
property and your assets.
oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So if you're
A
a
trust
home,
is better, but if you don't have everything, if you don't have all of that, then
right,
it's best as long as you have a will.
a
Because what
will.
happens is that when you get a life insurance policy, anything that you get, you got to put under that trust.
Right.
Mm,
Right.
And so
okay,
you say that
okay.
you just have, I just have this, I really don't. And then you put like your property, everything goes in that trust. Your
Absolutely.
properties, your
Your
insurance, anything that
assets
you
and
have,
things
and then
like
you
that.
designate who gets what in that trust, which a trust is like very good bonding.
Right.
But if you don't have all of that, like Miss Judy said, then a will would be the next.
Yeah. Now, just to add to what Kathy was saying too, I know for my 401k, for all of the listeners who are out there and you're working, my 401k offers a free living will and will within our package. So sometimes you may get a living will or will through another financial institution, whether it is your 401k or whether it could be sometimes banks, as well as Susie Armon.
Hmm.
She has a lot of great resources on living wills that, is really least expensive that you can follow the steps to get that done, as far as a cost factor.
Yes.
That's good.
We
That's
do have a
good.
good program. I think it was like $300 for the program.
For Susie,
Yes, it's a program that she
yeah,
has, and it's step by step. You don't have to hire a lawyer and stuff because it's
right,
always all
exactly.
the lawyers already put in
Within
there.
the
Mm,
price range, yeah.
yes,
But
Okay.
check with your 401k plan.
yes,
I know we just switched over to a new company and they offer that within our package.
yes,
And I've never heard of that before. So
yes.
that could be something for some of our listeners out there.
And it's also insurance companies offered as well because I know one of the insurance companies I work with, Foresters, they offer. that as well when you go online.
Yeah, a lot. I think a lot more insurance companies offer the if not the living will, definitely a
The
will.
will.
They
Hmm.
offer it with your services because it is you need to protect
Yes.
um, and to make sure that the money is distributed properly. Sometimes people get a large insurance policy and the money's there for the funeral and everything, but people forget about the other stuff that happens. What about the house that's not paid off? What
Mm-hmm.
about the medical bills that are still outstanding, especially if the person was in some type of assisted living or whatever? Those bills add up, and if they haven't been paid, you may think you're walking away with this money, and this money actually should be used to pay off that debt because it will come to you, especially if you've been named that person who's either the power of attorney or you're the person that she named or he named as the trustee of their estate. Then all of a sudden you're sitting here and it may be a year later you find out that that money that you thought was free is now going to need to be used to pay off a bill, a medical bill that you knew nothing about because it was there before and they never paid it, and now you're going to have to pay it. And so
Absolutely.
even when you're doing that, you need to make sure that when it comes to that money is being distributed the way it needs to be distributed. Because a lot of people think that, oh, once the funeral is paid for, that's it, and that's not true. There may be some outstanding debts that need to be taken care of, and you definitely don't want that to fall on you when there is money there that can help you pay for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing that I wanted to add and discuss, long-term care insurance.
Mm,
A lot of people don't know that that is something that you do have to have because the Medicare does not cover nursing homes and long-term care coverage. So that is something that we also need to really put in our planning for extended care, such as nursing homes or having someone in home care. This type of insurance helps to protect your retirement savings and ensure that you receive the care that you need because that could eat up your savings as well if you don't have that insurance portion of it. So it's a lot that's involved. And as we all say, planning is key.
And
yes.
that long term care, I strongly advise to get it while you at a younger age
Stage. Hmm.
because when you're mature, it could be costly.
Costly.
So
Yeah,
that's why a lot of people don't get it once they get at that mature age because of the amount it costs.
it costs a lot.
So it's best to get it when you're young because
Mhm.
the premium would be a lot difference. And then now, a lot of the investment programs is offering the long term care as a rider
Hmm.
that they're putting in there at no
Into
cost.
the policies. Yeah,
So it's good to check out policies that's offering that because when we're up in age, that policy made that cost for age 45 may cost you 200 and some dollars a month. Because long term care is not going to cost 50 or 60. It's going to range between $200 and $300. But say now you're in your 60s and you want to get long term care, that policy can range before five, seven, $800 a month
Mm.
because it's going
right.
to take care of the bills at that long term care facility, going to take care of the nurses, and you have to make sure that you have the different components in that long
In
term
that
care
long term.
policy because it's
Absolutely.
different components in there.
Oh
Right.
wow. That's a whole other discussion right there,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Right. Right.
Woo! That's why I say
Because
we
when
got to
you,
be prepared because a lot of stuff we don't. I honestly say we just don't know, and a lot
no,
of times we don't find out about it till we're in it. It's not until we're
absolutely.
in it and we realize, oh, I should have did this or you should have did that because nobody's sitting at your door going, do you need life insurance? Nobody's doing that. Nobody's
Really.
saying, are you sure you're going to be okay? Do you need long-term care? No,
Right.
nobody's doing that. And so we have to, in our communities, wherever that may be, if your community can be your family. A lot of us, we need to sit down and have these discussions with our family, even with our younger children. We need to be able to say to them, Okay, you got a job now. You need to start saving
Mhm.
for your. I told my son that. My son signed up and he's going into the Navy. And I
Oh,
told him
great.
all that money, and I know for him it's a lot of money, but that money that you get, start saving that money. Don't think
Right.
that you're getting a lot of money. It's not a lot of money. Start saving the money because you don't know what can happen.
Mhm.
And so you want to be prepared. Rainy days
Right.
happen to everybody.
Everybody. Absolutely.
Everybody
Absolutely.
has a rainy day. And if you never save for the rainy day, you can't get mad when it starts raining. You can't get
Amen.
mad. You can't get mad when the tornado hits or the hurricane
Amen.
hits because you didn't prepare for it. And a lot of us are not prepared, especially when it comes to our family, for our families, making sure that we're not burdening our family with our issues. As
Mm-hmm.
far as like making sure that we're prepared when it comes to retirement. I
Mm-hmm.
can't even talk about what we do when we and we're at now, but when you start to get to retirement, like I said, for me, it was a eye opener for me. And I'm like, okay,
Right.
so you got this done, you got to get that done, and now I got to go on my security, my social security. I got to find out what it would be for me. I need to find out
Right.
what I need to do. What if I could get Medicaid? Can I get this? Can I get? I gotta start looking now because what I don't want to have happen is I've watched a lot of people, especially in the hotel business, think that they had life insurance with the hotel companies, and I'm like, no, you don't. Once you leave,
It don't.
it's
Yep.
gone. It's gone.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and no, you can't pick it up. You know what I'm saying? You can't pick
Right.
it up once you leave. You can do it with a 401k, but you can't
Not
you
not
can't
the
do it with the life
insurance.
insurance.
Yeah.
And even when you were paying into the health insurance, once you leave the company, it's over. It's a
It's
You
wrap.
take
over
you
with.
take
It's over. And
absolutely
then you're like, why is it so much? I was only paying like
for
$300-400 a
four
month. Now
$4.
it's $1,000.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to piggyback on what you said about the military, which I learned. If you don't retire from the military, you don't have that package deal about
Mhm.
the life insurance and your um all that. Because I had one person that didn't stay and didn't retire from military. I said, "Oh, they got great insurance because they give you $50,000 life insurance. But if you're not retired from there, it's not. It's no longer there. It's not mobile."
Wow.
In the military,
Mm.
I learned that from one of the
So
military
they
people.
can't carry it with them.
Now, unless they retired, the ones that's there, been there,
Right.
TRICARE for life. They have the full medical taken care of. And I always say, if you got TRICARE, don't let nobody cancel your TRICARE for life because that means that you got free. You have that
Medical.
complimentary
Right.
medical
Right.
insurance, and it
Mm.
also play like you said with your Medicare pays a percentage. They can go on base, they can go to VA, they can get a Medicare Advantage plan.
Hmm.
But just to be careful with those Medicare Advantage plans, also when you have TRICARE. So it's
Right.
just so many different things. So I just want to piggyback off of that when you said about the military, and I learned that the other day about
Wow.
portable for the even that.
Right. And you know what I wanted to add too, Kathy? You just said that about the Medicare Advantage plans. We work with one of our facilitators, and she actually takes care of the Medicare Advantage plans for all insurances. Now, when you're out there shopping around, of course, everybody's going to tell you that they have the best policy. But it's really good to have someone that could sit back and look at the entire perspective, look at what you need, and then place you in a program that'll fit your need. Because not everyone that says, come to our program and we'll give you this, and it's only $59.99. That may not fit into your long range plan, you know. And so sometimes it's like shopping around. You have to really shop around when you look for your Medicare Advantage plans as to what plan will best fit you and your spouse or you by yourself with your healthcare needs, your prescription needs, and what's going on. And don't think because you're healthy and you don't need anything that you don't need to get any type of insurance. You need to have something
Mm.
just in case.
That is so true. That's the whole point of having insurance is that you have something because what if? What
Right.
if? Like, yeah, maybe for the first 50 years of your life, everything was great, and maybe even 60, you never needed any. anything. And then all of a sudden at 65, as soon as you retire, now you got to start taking medication for high blood pressure. And now you got to start, now you find out you had diabetes. Or like I said to my husband, I had no allergies. At the age of 35, for some apparent reason, I got hit with allergies. Things happen. So you
Yes,
need to prepare for the what if. What if this
absolutely.
happens to me? What if I'm going to need this? And if you're going to, I would prefer to pay the extra without getting penalized. Because if you think about that, it's
Absolutely.
not a one-time hit that repeatedly you're going to get hit and be penalized. I'd rather just go, okay, if that's going to be a part of it, let's just do this.
Just do it right and
Yeah, let's just do it.
figure
And
it into
I
your
don't have to
budget.
worry about
Right. Figure it into your budget
it.
because if you get hit, it's not in your budget.
Right, right.
It's like, where's
Absolutely.
this extra money coming from? And the medication, and the cost of the
Yeah.
medication, and the cost of the treatment, So you really do have to plan. Planning is key.
Absolutely. And so when we come, as we're coming to the end of this wonderful episode, and I'm telling you, we should have had, this is a two-parter, this is a three-parter. This could have been all month. We could have done this all month because y'all jumped. This should have been all month, and I'm bringing y'all back. I'm letting y'all know because I am a big component. When I say you're coming back, you're going to come back because I think that even though I said this month we're going to be talking about finance, I have somebody who's going to be talking about wealth. I have somebody also who's going to be talking about banking, and I think all of that is great. But I think about now because I am at that age that I
Age,
need to prepare myself, and I want everybody around me to be prepared because
period.
it is scary out there when you think about you have to settle because you didn't prepare for the life you wanted to live once you retire.
Absolutely.
And like I said, I see it every day. I live in Florida. Everybody down here is retired. Are trying
Yeah.
to
And
retire.
it says 1,000
Trying
people
to
per
retire
day
or
coming to
retire.
Florida now.
And I look at the people. I went to Wendy's. Everybody working at Wendy's is like 50, 60 years
No.
old.
Or at Publix, right.
And I'm like, what happened? I'm used to seeing young people, where the young kids gonna be working at if we're the ones working at Wendy's and
Exactly.
McDonald's and so that's reality for us. That because we
Absolutely.
didn't plan, because we wasn't strategic in what we were supposed to be doing, now at 50 and 60, we're working a part-time gig, just trying to supplement what
Mhm.
we got from Social Security. And
Security.
had we planned and gotten prepared, this probably wouldn't be us. We would probably be at the
Absolutely.
beach. We would probably be drinking our pina coladas at the beach or whatever. And now we have to be that Walmart person that's saying, "Welcome to
Come to
Walmart." Because
Walmart.
we
I'm just doing this because I'm bored. I'm just doing this. I really don't need it. I just want to get away a couple hours.
But it is so real. And I'm
Yeah, it's
so
so
glad
real.
that you're bringing this to light because I feel the same way. I'm 62. I'm looking in the next few years, like where we are, what we're going to do, so forth and so on. But I think the key is, as we all mentioned, our community, Black and Brown, do not have these conversations. And I am so glad, Cynthia, that you're having these conversations. And I hope that the viewers, as you say, get your note, get your pen, get your paper, and let's start doing it the right way. Because could you imagine if we all started, if we all got this information in our 30s?
right, right,
If we had this information when we got our first job. I mean, when we had our
right.
first job, we weren't thinking about saving anything. You know what I mean? 401k, what are you talking about? So I think that the conversation is so needed. And thank you so much for bringing it to light. And I pray that all your viewers that are out there, as you say, if it's not for you, pass the information on. It could be for your auntie, your grandma, your cousin. Let's start having the conversations about that, because another thing that's popular now is the health disparities and the health equity. And we fall into those categories because we don't have the things we need in order to be healthy. And the system is not providing it for us as well.
That is so true. That is so true. And Kathy, do you have something to say as we wrap it up?
I just want to first thank you, and Miss Judy for allowing me to be on this platform. It was such a blessing. And if I could leave one nugget, far as life insurance, when it comes to, a lot of people don't know that you can look on MIB, and I always say that describes as your credit report because everywhere we go, our credit, if we charge something, it's going to show when you apply. So your medical records, it's very important when you go to the doctor that if they prescribe you a medication and you say, I'm just going to take it to appease the doctor, you're now putting that in your MIB report in your life insurance. So when it's time, I ran across this 3 times this week. So when you apply for that life insurance and they pull that up, and I don't take that medication, where that medication came from, you just said that you took it. So I would say not just think about life insurance, but to make sure that if you have a blood pressure medication or diabetes, they say you borderline and you know you're not going to take that medication, say, doctor, I don't want to take that medication, but what is it something I can do as an alternative? I'll come back in 30 days. So that will be documented because that plays a big part in getting life insurance.
Wow.
So
See why
I
you dropped that nugget right there? Oh
I
my
wanted to drop
goodness.
that
We gotta come,
nugget because
we gotta come back.
so many people are doing that, and I wanted to get that nugget out. I wanted to get that nugget out there because we were
Wow.
talking about life insurance. It's not just about paying that premium, but it's about what you do, like you said, preparing. And a lot of people just get that medication. I used to do it too. I'm not taking that medication. I'm just gonna put it on, and it's showing up. I just talked to a client today and he had 2 medications that showed up in the MIB report. He's like, how did the insurance company pull that up? Because it was in the MIB report and it was 2015. So I'm just saying, if you know you're not going to take any medication, ask the doctor for an alternative way. And thank you again for allowing me to be on this platform. But
Absolutely.
it's just so many different nuggets when you prepare for life insurance or your medical insurance.
Forms. Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you, both of you. I enjoyed having you. And like I said, this ain't over. We will be talking again.
Okay.
This is definitely a seminar. This is a conference. Like this needs to be a conference where we just get together and everybody can talk about what they need to talk about, the different types of insurance, the long term care is another big
Yeah,
discussion.
it's a whole platform all by itself.
That's
Power of
right.
attorney,
Yeah.
everything, because we are so unlearned. It's just something we are not taught. Somebody said it yesterday, and it's so true. A lot of us are um, financially illiterate. We just don't know,
Hmm.
and we've been taught certain things to the point that even when somebody says you could do this and this would be better for you, we won't do it because grandma said don't do that.
Hmm.
Grandpa said don't do that because they just trying to take your money, and so we do things not realizing that we're doing it at our own peril. We
Right.
we're doing it at our own peril. We're sacrificing ourselves over something that's not true, and we won't talk to somebody that actually knows about it. We keep hearing it, from cousin Pookie and them, and cousin Pookie and them are not going to
Yeah.
bury us. Cousin Pookie is not. You don't even trust Pookie in your house, but you trust Pookie to tell you about life
Yeah.
insurance and
Yeah.
stuff. So we need to get real. So you know what? I'm gonna set this up. I want this. I want to set this up. I want to do a conference on this. Even if I come to you, I'll be the MC. I'll be the MC. I'll come up there where you at, and we can
Okay.
just do a conference on this, just talking about this, getting a group of people together. We just go around and do this conference, especially down here in Florida.
Yes,
For
ma'am.
all
Yes,
these
ma'am.
older people who should know
Yes.
about this. And if
Absolutely.
they don't know, sad to say for some of us, it might be too late because we're learning about it too late. It needs to be the 40s and the 30s and sometimes even the 20-year-olds at least start getting started. But yeah, this needs to be a conference that is held at every church around the country, at every social gathering. When we all get together, like me and my kids do, we get together. Y'all got life insurance, y'all got health insurance.
Right,
That
right.
has to be the discussion, because if we're not discussing it, we're lying to each other. And I don't really love you if
Absolutely.
I'm not asking
Yeah.
you how you're doing.
Yeah.
As I say all the
Absolutely.
time, when
Yeah.
people, I say, how you doing? And people go, oh, I'm fine. I'd be like, really? Are you really
Really? I
fine?
can hear it in your voice. I
Yeah.
know I had some grandparents. I was at a birthday party, and the grandparents, for the birthday gift, it was a 2-year. They gave life insurance for the grandbaby, and so that when that baby turns 19 or 20, they're gonna have so much cash value in there because they got a nice policy. So a 200 some $1,000 policy for a 2-year old, only $20 a month.
Yes. Yes.
And so, and it's a paid up policy. So they'll have 100,000 paid up policy at age 20, plus probably about 10 or 15,000 that they can pull out if they needed it.
Right.
And that's the discussions we should be
We're
having.
happy. Yeah.
That's what we should be doing, instead of going out here and buying these Nintendos and PlayStations and getting cars that drive around for 2 minutes and you got to charge it for 15 hours. Instead of buying that stuff, we should be doing insurance policies
Absolutely.
for our grandchildren and our children, and making sure that long term they're going to be taken care of,
Care
because
of.
you might not be here when they're 18, but that insurance policy will be there for them. And they
We'll
can
be
say,
there.
my
Yes,
grandma, my
ma'am.
grandpa looked me out for real. Like, I can go to college. I can start a
Absolutely.
business. I can
Mhm.
invest this, and we need to look at it more so as not, oh, somebody's taking something out of my pocket, but that I'm investing
Yeah,
in
I'm leaving a
myself.
legacy.
Yes,
I
Absolutely.
just
yes,
met with someone a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago, and she did for all 4 her nephews.
Yeah. Leaving a legacy.
leaving your
Absolutely.
legacy. I like that. I love that.
Yeah.
Leaving a legacy. And we should be leaving a legacy of growth, not poverty. We
Yes.
should not be leaving
Absolutely.
that. We shouldn't be leaving it.
Absolutely.
That is, and people always claim, I say that about Abraham's blessing, because so many people claim that. And then when you look at their life, they're really not living it. They
Yeah.
are saying it, but they're not living it. And
Absolutely.
Abraham was able to bless his children. He buried himself. He had a place to be buried. So why are you now saying I'm Abraham's blessing, but you're not doing what Abraham did?
You're not
Abraham
doing it right.
prepared, and he
Right.
prepared his kids to be prepared. If you
Right.
read it in the Bible, every single one of them after him did the exact same thing. They
Same
prepared
thing.
to die. They prepared themselves to die, for their wives to die, and their kids to die. And we're not doing that. And we have more than Abraham and them had. We have
Absolutely.
the opportunity to do it. We're just
Absolutely.
choosing not to. So I
Absolutely.
know we went a little long, everybody, but I'm telling you, it's needful. It is something
Yes,
that
it
just
is.
needs to be said, and it's for every community. I don't care if you're Black, white, Hispanic, Japanese, Chinese, if you're watching this, Christian, non-Christian, because I know I have non-Christians that watch me too. This is a needed conversation. And if you're having a conversation with yourself, be the first receiver. But then after you receive it, tell somebody else.
Somebody else.
Tell
Yes.
your friends, go talk to your mama and find out what she's doing with her health insurance. Find out I had to find out from when my father almost died. I had to get real about what's happening. I found out my father had a will. My father has a living will. My father has his own. My father has. He's taking care. I don't have to worry about my father. My mother, on the other hand, was a different story. And so we need to be honest. You might not be there with your family at that moment, but it's somehow, some way, and I'm the only living child, I am going to be that person that's going to be making decisions. And
Right.
we need to be prepared for that. And I want my children to be prepared that if something should happen to me, that they can make decisions based off of what I wanted and not what they think or are in their feelings about it. So
Absolutely.
thank you both. I really
Oh,
enjoyed
you're
the
very welcome.
conversation. And like I said, we're going to do something. We're going to do
Okay.
something. We're going to figure this out. We're going to do something. But
Okay.
thank you.
No,
Thank you
thank
for your
you.
wealth of knowledge. Thank you for giving us your wealth of knowledge. And I can't wait to hear this wealth of knowledge in person when we have the conference, because I'm
Yeah.
speaking into existence.
Okay.
We're
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
so I'm excited, and I pray you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank
you.
you. Such a
You're
blessing.
welcome. Thank you. And so I want to say to everybody out there, my viewers, I love you so very much. And I pray that for all of you who will watch this, please put it in a replay and then share it. Share it share it out into the universe. I will honestly say, share it out into the universe. We all, every single one of us, needs to be prepared for our retirement. And if you want to, like a lot of these young people want to retire at 35, you can retire at 35 all you want to and be broke at 45. If you do not prepare for your retirement, if you don't prepare for what you want for the rest of your life. So this is your opportunity. You heard some great nuggets. Go on all the different social medias, find yourself a good good life insurance for you. Find yourself some information. Do it, do it, do it. I'm excited for you. I know you are, and I know you guys will come to our conference when we have it. But I want to say to you guys, God bless you. I wish you guys the best. I pray that I will see you guys again. Love you, love you, love you. Bye-bye. This is your crazy coach, and I'm out.